family as well. So we're going to just go ahead and hop on in. And today we're going to talk about cognitive distortions, right? So, very simply put, cognitive distortions are just kind of what we call errors or negative patterns of thinking that do not serve us. And as a part of our healing journey, part of that is understanding how our thoughts, emotions, behaviors kind of all influence each other, and taking a moment to be able to extract the emotionality from our thoughts and examine the thoughts for truth, for rationality, for logic, things of that nature. Now, this is separate validating your feelings, right? Your feelings are your feelings, and so they deserve to be validated. But in understanding that your feelings are your feelings, we also need to understand that that doesn't mean that your feelings are rooted in that your feelings are rooted in logic. It doesn't mean that your feelings are rooted in any sort of objective kind of evidence. And so it's important to make sure that we are examining our thoughts to see if they are harming us or helping us. And if we find certain errors or certain patterns in the way that we think, figuring out how we can examine the pattern, stop it, and replace it with something that's a little bit more helpful. And the reason why this is important is because our thoughts have a lot to do with our level of happiness, our the health of our interpersonal relationships, and other areas of our life. So it is really important to kind of start to kind of get down into the nitty-gritty of all the things and understanding where we may have patterns of thinking that are no longer serving us in this next season, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and jump on in. So again, we were talking a little bit about cognitive distortions, right? And remember, we were saying that they are kind of just common patterns and errors of thinking. And I want to make sure that we understand that these are super common. A lot of people struggle with these. The key is again, increasing that awareness so that we can understand how these thoughts may be directly impacting us and preventing us from being able to live a life that, we want to live, to be honest. All right, so there are about 10 common cognitive distortions. And we're going to try to run through them quickly because honestly, you could really spend 30 minutes on all 10, on each of the 10. Do your own research, hopefully take it back to your therapist and you guys can talk about it a little bit. So let's get started. First one, we tend to call this all or nothing thinking, black or white thinking, and it's basically where you kind of see life in absolutes. Something is perfect or disaster, all good or all bad. There's no middle ground. And the reason why this era of thinking is not helpful for us is because life truly does exist a lot of times in that middle ground, in that gray area. So if we are very rigid in our way of thinking, it can cause a lot of distress to us in like everyday situations that we can handle in a better way, but that black and white thinking will really keep us trapped. And so all or nothing black and white thinking. Number 2 is overgeneralization. And so this kind of looks like where you kind of you reach a conclusion about something and you incorrectly apply it across the board, right? So let's say like you missed a train one morning. Now you always miss the train. Or you get a bad performance review, or not a bad one that you weren't expecting ever. Now they don't value you. Now they don't see your worth. Now you're not a good employee. And you see how you can take one situation and you kind of incorrectly apply it so that it becomes what you consider to be the truth for all situations, but it's really not. Third is the mental filter. And so that's basically where we kind of strain out the positives and we magnify the negatives. And so people who have a pessimistic, negative kind of woe is me mindsets, they tend to have this mental filtering going on. Everything that happens in life passes through this filter, and it's a negative filter. So what do you think the outcome is going to be? Mostly negative. Their thoughts, their emotions, their interactions. All right, number 4, disqualifying the positive. So it can kind of be like a mental filter, but with disqualifying the positives, you recognize when positive things happen, but you tend to explain it away as like fluke or luck. And in doing that, you almost convince yourself that your successes and the things that are going well in your life have very little to do with you. And that seems to foster a sense of like hopelessness and helplessness. And we don't want that, because those are two major things that lead us down those paths of depression. If we feel like we don't have an active part to play in how things turn out in our lives, we'll stop trying. So just be mindful of that. The 5th is jumping to conclusions. And so this is kind of about mind reading, assuming people are reacting negatively to you, or it can even be what we call fortune telling, like predicting things will turn out badly. Another one is magnification and minimization. And so this can look like blowing things out of proportion or diminishing their importance undeservedly. Number 7 looks like emotional reasoning. This is one that a lot of people do. A lot of people. This one had me in like an emotional kind of hold for a while. And basically emotional reasoning is saying that your feelings kind of equal the truth. So however I feel about something means that the root cause of it, it's how I see it, is the truth, is objective, is factual, all of that. And that may not be the truth. Like you can feel very strongly about something and be dead wrong. Now, are your feelings valid? Yes, they are. Remember, we're not equating rational and valid as like being mutually exclusive. Like you can be irrational about something and your feelings still be valid, right? Or you could be utilizing emotional reasoning, feeling very strongly about something, and the way you're interpreting the situation is not rooted in logic. It's not rooted in objective evidence. It's not rooted in reality. Okay. Now, the next one is should statements, where we have these situations where we chastise ourselves with shoulds or shouldn'ts, ought tos, things of that nature. This often leads to guilt and disappointment. But even more than that, we got to take a second and make sure that we're kind of examining where these should and ought to statements coming from. A lot of times we tell ourselves what we should or ought to do, and these expectations are rooted in family patterns that no longer align with our truth, society, cultural standards that are not in alignment with us. So taking a moment and examining kind of where these should statements coming from. And even beyond that, chastising yourself with what you should or should not do, should or should not have done in a situation is very rarely helpful. Kind of, for lack of better words, the bullet is out the chamber. You cannot take it back. So how can we then move forward in trying to show up in a healthier or better way, or handling the situation in a more emotionally mature manner, instead of beating ourselves up with shoulds or ought tos, things of that nature. Number 9 looks like labeling and mislabeling. So this is an extreme form of overgeneralization where you identify with your perceived mistakes, right? So that could be, and it's even beyond just us. We label and we mislabel other people as well. And then we take those labels and we run with them. We share them with other people as they are, as the truth. And that is how gossip, that is how difficult, I would say, interpersonal interactions take place because we come from this place of labeling or judging or bringing our feelings into it and expecting that because we feel this way, it's right, it's the truth, and people should react or handle the situation in the way that we see fit. 10th and final one is personalization. This is another one that people do a lot. And so personalization, you see yourself as the cause of events outside of your control. Metaphorically, let's say it rains on your outdoor party and you blame yourself. Or personalization, another example, in friend groups, right? You may assume that you're being intentionally excluded, that you are being talked about, or that these actions or other people's actions or events outside of your control are a direct reflection upon you, and you tend to blame yourself or you tend to go with that. So let's take a break for a second, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about how do we go about that. All right, so we got our 10 cognitive distortions. Now remember that there may be others out there, but these are the 10 really most common ones. And so you're saying here, okay, I recognize that I'm in there with a couple of those, and I will say you're in good company. A lot of people identify with multiple cognitive distortions. And honestly, people don't even realize that it's a thing until they're in therapy and we talk about our thought patterns and we start to examine our thoughts. You would be surprised how many people feel like because they think something that that's just what it is, and they leave no room to examine it. They leave no room to stop the thought, replace it, all of that. So now, since we have identified our distortions, and I'm going to run through mine because I know that we are live and that I talk fast and all the things. So let me run through them one more time. Then we'll talk about how we can actually replace those thoughts or learn how to think in a healthier way. And it can happen, but it takes a lot of repetition, effort on your part, and all of that. But I will say this, that once you kind of start training your brain to think differently, it becomes easier and easier and easier. So, all right, running that thing back from the top. So remember, number one, all or nothing thinking, black and white, seeing life in absolutes, no gray area. Something's either perfect or a disaster, no middle ground. Number two, overgeneralization. You reach a conclusion and you apply it incorrectly across the board. And it really takes one event and it becomes a never-ending pattern of defeat. Number three is mental filter, where we're taking everything that happens through life through this negative kind of mental filtering lens, and we strain out the positives and magnify the negatives in a situation. Number four is disqualifying the positive. So we recognize the positive, but we dismiss it as a fluke or luck, not giving ourselves credit for it. The fifth is jumping to conclusions. This is about mind reading, where we attempt to read the minds of others, feel like we know what they're thinking, feeling, or even reaching conclusions ourselves. In fortune telling without having all of the information and all of the things that we need to make a good decision. Also predicting that things will turn out badly. All right, halfway there, number six, we have magnification and minimization. So magnification, we're blowing things out of proportion, right? the reaction is disproportionate to the event. Minimization, where we should, have a stronger reaction to something, but we minimize it and we diminish its importance undeservedly. Number 7, emotional reasoning, feeling that because we feel strongly about something, then it must be the truth, right? If I feel stupid, then I must be stupid. Number 8, should statements. Chastising yourself with shoulda, couldas, ought tos, all of that. It often leads to guilt and disappointment, and it's nothing that you can actually do in that moment to change the choice that you made, but you can decide to move forward and to make a different decision. Number 9, labeling and mislabeling. How we're interacting with other people. We love to throw labels on ourselves, we throw labels on other people, and that really prevents us from being able to connect and have the interpersonal relationships that I think many people want, but don't know how to put the work in, don't know how to show up in a healthy way in order to be able to not only just have the relationship, but continue it and allow it to grow and be healthy, right? The last and final one is personalization, where we take things personal. We assume that things are our fault and they're not even caused by us at all. So let's get to overcoming them. So when we were thinking about overcoming cognitive distortions for something like all or nothing thinking or overgeneralization, let's practice spotting the gray areas and the exceptions, right? There are gray areas. Life is lived in the gray areas a lot of times. Very rarely is something all good or all bad. For like a mental filter, make a deliberate effort to notice positives. Make a deliberate effort to also give yourself credit, because you can even kind of slide this into the discounting the positive cognitive distortion as well. Giving yourself credit, giving yourself praise for hard work, allowing other people to praise you and give you credit. All of that kind of ties in there. Also, jumping to conclusions, something else that we can do, challenging our assumptions or predictions and seeing if they are grounded in reality, if they're grounded in factual evidence, objective evidence, all of those things. When thinking about magnification and minimization, checking whether your perspective is balanced, right? Making sure that we're taking into consideration, remembering the gray areas, alternative interpretations, alternative explanations, objective evidence, all of that. Emotional reasoning, reminding yourself that feelings are not facts. Remembering that, and that's something that we all can benefit from. Feelings are not facts. If there's nothing that you take away from this episode today, feelings are not facts. That right there should be enough to be able to release you from the bondage and all of that, because when we are able to realize that even when we feel really strongly, it does not mean that it's rooted in factual evidence. We free ourselves from that tie of emotion. And so the emotion then becomes in charge of us, because we believe that, okay, if I'm reacting like this, it must be the truth, or I must have a point, or I must be right. No. All right. Now, for caught in should statements, try swapping that with something that is less absolute. And another thing is, try examining where you're getting the basis for these shoulds or shouldn'ts or ought tos. Examine if these are societal or cultural kind of expectations, and see if you even agree with them before we get ready to hang our hat on it as being the truth, and reminding ourselves and beating ourselves up about all the ways that we are making mistakes. And pushing against labeling kind of looks like giving grace for ourselves, giving grace for others. I tell people often, when you find that people are really hypercritical, negative, miserable people, they've only taken that internal dialogue that they already have for themselves and taken it and spewed it out on other people, right? And so grace is very important. The more that we're able to give ourselves grace, the more grace we have to give to others. So just remember that. And also for personalization, recognizing that external factors have roles too, right? It's not just our mistakes. It's not just all the bad things about us. These external factors that happen in life really have very little to do with us. We have very little control over it. And that could also be a reason why things are happening the way that they are. So, thinking about these things and really remembering to challenge yourself, to not just lean into those feelings and feeling away, but really taking a moment and saying, okay, I'm noticing that my mood is changing, right? I'm noticing that, I'm having some thoughts that may be altering my mood, the way that I feel about myself, things of that nature. Let me first stop, take a second, and extract the thought, remembering that we can put our thoughts like on clouds. And it's really helpful to extract thoughts and like really picture the thought on a cloud, because what happens is that we're able to then externalize the thought from who we are. When we're able to externalize the thought from who we are, then it no longer becomes about us being good or us being bad. It's just a thought. It's just a feeling. So then when we extract it from us and it's not a part of us anymore, we're able to better take a look at it objectively. And we're able to sit and say, okay, are there any cognitive distortions at place? Okay. If so, can I identify one? All right. And can I then take a moment, whether in my mind or even writing it down, to come up with 2 other interpretations of the situation, alternative ways of viewing it, to practice and give my brain practice in stretching myself in the way that I think. Now, remember that the brain has neuroplasticity. And I say this often, it's just a really fancy word for the brain being able to change, right? And so it takes a long time. It takes repetition and it takes a while. I remember reading one study where it was saying that in pre and post MRI scans, you had a pre-MRI scan, and then I think it took like 14 or 15 weeks of doing like behavioral modification or these kind of little tools to start to see some changes in your brain scan. And so you are able to change the way that your brain thinks and like where it first like jumps to. I feel like I'm not saying it the best way, but it is what it is. But I'll kind of just give you a real life example. So for me and other people that I know, I'll now just speak for myself. I used to be very like emotional reasoning and personalization was my thing, right? If I felt strongly about something, had to be true, had to be right. I was in the right. That was just it. Personalization, I would take a lot of things personally, a lot of things, even things that had nothing to do with me. But again, I was only speaking to myself the way that I think that I learned over time to kind of, let me take a step back. So when we go through things in life, right? Remembering that survival is paramount first and foremost. Sometimes when we are in survival mode or we're learning to survive and overcome and adapt, we will lean more into certain ways of thinking, negative patterns of thinking, all of that. And we will then take it and it will become our fault, right? So no one else has to speak negatively about me, has to call me names, has to treat me poorly because, hey, I already have beat you to it. I already am beating myself up. I'm already very negative towards myself. and remembering that what comes up comes out sometimes. So what you have on the inside is what you will radiate to other people, what you will vibrate to other people as well, energetically as well, and in other ways. And so guess what? If I am already in my mind trying to beat people to the punch of like telling me where I'm wrong, telling me that I'm a bad person, telling me the way that I'm thinking about something is wrong and I should do this or shouldn't do that. If I'm already there with the ammunition to speak unkindly to myself, in my mind, that removes the control or the impact of other people saying negative things about me because I'm already there, right? I've already thought about all the ways that I've messed up, all the ways that I'm wrong and I could have done it differently. And that's just our mind's way of kind of beating other people to the punch of being able to re-traumatize us. If I'm already there beating myself up, then what you say to me is going to have less of an effect because I've already personalized it as being my truth. So I say all of that to say that it's going to feel like a hell of a lot of work when you're sitting here and you're literally learning to extract every single thought and examine it and replace it, or choose what you want to think about, choose what emotion that you want to lean into. These things are choices. And so once we realize that they're choices, then we get our power back and we understand that feelings are not facts, thoughts are not facts, they're feelings and they're thoughts. And let's try to figure out what's underneath them, because our body and our mind is still trying to communicate something to us. But again, it will always go back to those things that it's used to. So if you're used to having people be critical towards you, you're going to be critical towards yourself. If you're used to having people place the blame on you, you're going to place the blame on yourself. Right? We don't do anything different. We kind of just wash, rinse, and repeat. And we're stuck in this robot mode until we wake up and we decide that life can look different and we learn how to retrain our brain and to show up different. All right. So that's it for our cognitive distortions. Remember that I am a therapist, but I am not your therapist. Okay. So if you are having a mental health crisis, please, please, please head to your nearest emergency room, call 911, or go to your local community services board. I want to leave us with a quote that I think was very impactful for me to read this. But as traumatized children, we always dreamed that someone would come and save us. We never dreamed that, in fact, it would be ourselves as adults. And so this is what this healing journey looks like. My clients and I joke weekly about how ghetto this healing journey is and how it feels, and it gets a lot worse before it gets better. But man, once you are on the other side of it, you realize just how much time, energy, effort, emotion that you have been spending the wrong way, and how life can really be and how it can look for you when you turn a quarter of that effort that you want to give to people and to things and events outside of your control, and you turn it inward and start to be very intentional about what you allow in your space, with thoughts, with feelings, and what you hang on to. So happy Sunday. I hope you guys enjoy some time with your families. I will not be here next week because I will be conducting the group sessions for this wellness retreat. So super excited about that, but I will not be here next Sunday. I may still drop an episode. I don't know. I got a busy week ahead of me, but we will see. All right. Remember, if you guys are looking for a therapist, feel free to hit me up. I will do what I can to try to help you. Also, psychologytoday.com is an amazing resource. It allows you to filter for your insurance, your presenting issue, and you're able to see the therapist, see if they have openings and all of that. Also, if you guys have questions or topics that you would like to see addressed, please feel free to hit me up as well. Again, just trying to give out some information that people may not be aware of, and hopefully a seed or something will be planted to where you guys will continue on and either go back to therapy, go to therapy for the first time, or whatever, right? All right, so you guys continue to have an amazing day. We will see you soon. Be well, take care of yourself and others. Bye-bye.